Right, so today's video, what we're going to be doing is listing 5 DC superheroes that need games. So what I'm doing with today's list is this is going to be 5 DC superheroes that need games. I'm going to try and keep it to ones that haven't had games. So essentially, Batman ruled out. He's probably the only one that gets ruled out because like Justice League, they haven't had a game in forever. I'm not going to include teams, but I'm going to include singular characters. It's going to be 5 because it's a top 5. That's how many are in the list. 5. But I'm going to keep it to characters that are that haven't had many games in the past, or their games haven't been very good. So pretty much every DC character is on the table minus Batman. So we're going to start off with number 5, Superman. I'm pretty sure he's the one that everyone was thinking about. Superman has had no good games. He's had nothing good. I'm pretty sure he might have had a good thing on the SNES or something, but in the last couple console generations, he's had nothing. He had Superman 64, which was trash. He had Superman Returns, which was slightly less trash, but it's still, you know, it's like comparing compost and recycling. You know, one is like, you open up both lids, they still smell. One smells a little bit better than the other, but they still smell, and they're still going to a tip. You know, it's just one slightly easier to play again. The other one, no. But I really want to see a Superman game done right. I think if you give it to a studio like Rocksteady that knows what to do with a superhero IP, they can do something good with Superman. It is very different to Batman, but I feel like it needs to be something very different. We need something different to Batman because we've had a whole decade of just Batman and nothing else. So we want something new and fresh to and bright. Superman can be bright because Superman comes out in the day as well as the night. Batman, his entire game is set at night, and that's kind of very boring to look at. A Superman game can be set during the day, and it can look beautiful on like a PS5. It can look beautiful with like ray tracing, and you don't need to be super diverse with like where the game is set. You can have the first game just be Superman versus Lex Luthor and everything be set on Earth, and sequels can be on other planets as well. But I just really want a really good Superman game that looks beautiful and that plays well, and probably you could maybe give it to Platinum or Insomniac or someone. It doesn't even need to have a great story because Superman, it's not always about the story, is it? It's about playing as this character that is larger than life and that's so powerful, and it feels like just an absolute power trip to play, and it should feel like a power trip to play a Superman game. Number two is going to be a slightly more obscure character that is my personal favourite DC superhero, my personal favourite character in the DC canon, Hawkman. Hawkman has no has no villains that are of note. He has very little story potential to work off of. He's usually in a team, but he's my favourite super. I want him to have his own starring role game, even though, you know, I know none of his villains. I know barely anything about the character, but I really love his design, and I really want. I don't know, maybe a kind of Indiana Jones-esque style flight simulator thing. Maybe. I honestly don't know where you can go with a Hawkman game. I just really want it. It would be really cool to see a Hawkman game, because Hawkman doesn't get a lot of love. He hasn't appeared in Injustice. Hawkgirl has. Hawkman never did. He didn't appear in Injustice 2 in any fashion. But yeah, Hawkman. I just really want him to, if not his own starring role in a game, just to appear in a game. Maybe a Justice League game, maybe a Justice Society of America game at some point. But I'd really like Hawkman to appear in a game at some point, in some fashion. Next is number 3, The Flash. The Flash was meant to get a game on the PS2 that was meant to be like a GTA style open world sandbox game. And the thing with The Flash is it would be very difficult to make a game like that, but it would be very possible to make a game like that, because he has a really diverse rogues gallery. He has it goes more towards the cinematic route. So I think The Flash, as opposed to Batman, The Flash would work as a Telltale game, I think. I don't know how else you could do it. Like, maybe, because you have super speed in, like, I can't think of a game at the moment which is like the core of the game is super speed, but I'm sure there is a game where the super speed is a core mechanic. I doubt they will have you like be super fast for the whole game. I doubt that can be like actually rendered into a game. I very much doubt that we'll see a solo Flash game in any like capacity. But I think it would be very interesting, and he definitely has the rogues gallery to like make fun boss fights. And I think that personally, his kind of the way the character works would be more like tailored towards something like a Telltale game, because you can do story first, and you can get like the visual cinematic aspect of the super speed, but it's gonna be in a Telltale like setting where it's more like reaction based. It's more like quick time events. I know that isn't the most like satisfying like gameplay thing to do, but I don't see how you can really do a Flash game and have it work and have it run well. Maybe with modern technology or the ray tracing that's going to be in the PS5, but I don't know if it can work, but it would be cool to see it work. Number 4, Green Arrow. Green Arrow can work. He has an entire show worth of villains to draw from. If you don't want to go from the comics, you have a show to draw inspiration from. I would draw inspiration from the comics personally, just because the show is a bit crap in later seasons. But the I would go with going with the comic book look, having maybe a few hours on the island training, getting to grips with how the combat would work, because it would be a definite switch. You would switch between the long ranged bow and actual hand to hand combat. The way I see it is very much like Shadow of Mordor. If you played Shadow of Mordor, I would see it definitely like that, where it's got the same combat style as the Batman Arkham games, but there's also bow gameplay in there as well, and you get to use a bow and arrow. But the thing is, with a Green Arrow game, I personally, because it's a comic book game, I think they can get away with this. Unlimited arrows. Unlimited arrows. You get unlimited normal arrows, but I feel like the trick arrows can be the limited supply. So it's you need trick arrows to get through certain scenarios, and some enemies are weak to certain arrows, but you have a limited amount of those certain arrows. I feel like that's a way to make it fair, and then if you run out of those, you use the normal arrows, which do less damage, and then you can include the arrows into combat, into melee attacks as well. I feel like Green Arrow is a very easy game to do, and you can make it work because you already have that template, and you just need to put it in a modern setting, and you need to input the villains, and you need to make that work, and it would be a very interesting thing to see how you would do a Malcolm Merlin boss fight. We've already seen a perfect Deathstroke boss fight in Arkham Origins, so you can just... I don't know if you can rip that out, because Green Arrow isn't as good a fighter as Batman, so you can probably make that be more about stealth and avoiding Deathstroke's attacks, and being more about just getting him in certain spots. Because I feel like Deathstroke has to be in the game, because Deathstroke is almost synonymous with Green Arrow now, or the Teen Titans, but Teen Titans are never getting a game. They're never getting a game. But they're kind of synonymous there now. Their rivalry, because of the show, it's almost synonymous, and obviously Count Vertigo as well. How would you do a boss fight like that? He's a guy that gives you vertigo, which is the feeling that you're really high, or really high up, or that your ears start ringing and stuff. How is that a good villain? How is he a villain that has stayed the course of time? But he has, so you kind of have to put him there because he's one of Green Arrow's most prevalent villains. Also, you got Brother Eye. I don't know, Brother Blood. He's a thing that exists. And my last pick is... I kind of ran out of picks, and then I realised Green Lantern is perfect. So the first how I came towards this is I thought Platinum Games, and I thought, right, so in the Marvel list that I did, there was 3 Marvel games that need to happen.
Blackest night.
Need to happen after
evil
Marvel Avengers and
shall escape my sight.
Now Spider-Man Miles Morales.
But those who
There was
worship
Spider-Man 2 at the time.
evil's might,
Beware
my power.
I made a Ghost Rider pick.
Green Lantern's
And the
light.
Ghost Rider pick was given to have the game by Platinum. The Ghost Rider or Blade was needed again by Platinum. I think Green Lantern can nail a like Platinum game style because it's definitely see that kind of like storytelling you're using one combo really like diverse constructs really concept and it was really good to watch that combo. And Platinum Games have shown with Nier Automata that they can do like introspective they can do introspective like stories and they can do good stories. They also showed like with the most recent game that escapes me right now. I'll put it in. I'll edit in the name of it, but Astral Chain. That's the new game that they've got. Astral Chain. That one is mainly about a police force, but you're like attached to this like demon thing that's kind of a Pokemon, but kind of not, and like it. And like that, but the whole chain aspect of that, like they like that's a construct, but they work with constructs and they work with weapon based like stuff. I think Platinum has models for like what a lot of constructs can be in a Green Lantern game, and I feel like it would be really cool to fight Green Lantern villains in like that kind of like really flashy combat style. And there's also like the flight sections that can be like the flight sections in Nier Automata, which are like bullet hell sections. So just copy and paste Nier Automata and make it and put Green Lantern as the main character. And, like you can switch between lanterns as well. I feel like that would be cool instead of like just having unlockable suits. I feel like it would be cooler if you had certain sections of the game where you're playing as Hal Jordan, certain sections of the game where you're playing as Jon Stewart, certain sections where you're playing as Carl Rayner, and maybe even certain sections where you're playing as Kilowog, Tomar Ray, other Green Lantern characters, and they all have different moves, and maybe even play as Sinestro at some point. And every character has diverse moves, because I feel like Green Lantern is such a diverse like pool of like you can do everything. You can make this the flashiest, coolest game ever, and people would eat it up, and it could be the greatest superhero game of all time. It could be the most hype game ever. Or it could fall flat on its face because someone could try and make it more than it's supposed to be. And it's just supposed to be like a load of space cops hitting each other with giant green hammers, or giant red hammers, or giant yellow hammers, and just having a fun time. And that's what a Green Lantern game should be. Just a fun time had by everyone. It doesn't need to be super deep. It doesn't need to have like super deep combat. Or super deep combat is great because it should be a combat-based game, but it doesn't need to have super deep like gameplay. Like it doesn't need stealth. It doesn't need this, that, and the other. It just needs a really tight combat system, and it needs to look cool. And those two things are what Platinum Games knows how to do, and it's their bread and butter. So, Platinum Games, get on a Green Lantern game right now. Do it. That is my ultimate pitch. So, there is my top 5 characters that need games from the DC universe. Yeah, let me know in the comments below if you agree with my picks. If you don't, have an angry rant at me. Let me know what characters you want to see into a video game. Be it DC, Marvel, independent. Do you think there should be more independent love in the gaming world? Do you think there needs to be a new Spawn game? I think there needs to be a new Spawn game, a new Judge Dredd, a new a good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Just saying, there needs to be a sequel to Transformers Devastation. Just saying. Transformers Escalation. I don't know. They had like IDW had a load of stories that were just with shun at the end. So devastation, escalation, infiltration, the lot. But the thing is, the last one that they did was called Devastation. So they just started with the first one. It's just like, oh, we've got Devastator on the front, so we'll use Devastator. So I love video games, man. I love video games. I'm just going to leave it there. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take a look at my Instagram, my Twitter, my Twitch. All three of those. They'll be in the B-roll at the end, and they'll be in the description. They're in my channel banner. They're in the About section of my channel. They're everywhere, man. Just go ham. There you go. Peace.